8 o'clock, 8 p.m. on a Monday night, YouTube, Facebook Live. How about you? It's your boy DV, Dozell, and KV, the dialogue team, dialogue with Dozell. My brother is riding shotgun, literally. No, he's driving. And he's going to be popping in occasionally until he gets settled. KV, if you can hear, what's up, bro? Yeah, we don't have his audio, but we'll be popping him in. We'll be popping him in as need be. Okay, until he gets settled. Our guest tonight is Chief Jorge Colina. He is a career policeman, rising to the ranks of Chief of Police at the City of Miami Police Department, a recent retiree, and he is going to be our guest, and we're going to talk about some basic things about policing in America. How can we make this thing better? How can the citizenry react better? How can we be one community? We're blessed that he's a part of the D2C team now, and he's working from that side of it. Chief Colina, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, DV. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Well, bless you for making it. We knew this was a short getting together, but thank you so much for signing on and being with us tonight. Chief, just take a second for Dozell Land just to know everything there is about you and your career, and then we're going to get into some specific questions, if you don't mind, please. You can introduce yourself better than anybody else could.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And listen, I don't mind. And by the way, before we get into the questions, just so you guys know, there is nothing off the table. So you ask me whatever you want to ask me. I don't offend very easily. And if there's something that you legitimately always wanted to ask, or you're curious about something, or one of your listeners wants to know something, it's all good, man. Ask away. So, yeah, I spent a little over 30 years at the City of Miami Police Department. I was fortunate enough to rise up the ranks. So I was a police officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a commander, a major. I worked as assistant chief over every division in the agency. Until I was made chief of police. I got to serve as chief for a little over 3 years, retired about 2.5 years ago. And man, I worked just about everywhere, from narcotics to UC work, undercover work, money laundering, a lot of different task forces, administration. I worked at internal affairs 3 different times. Man, I did a little bit of everything. I was fortunate enough to be able to work in a lot of different elements and do a lot of different things.
But I got to ask you, as a former officer and as a fellow minority who was often recruited by the feds, how did you ward off that recruitment from the feds and stay with the local police department for an entire career?
Well, there was one time where, you know how it works anywhere where you're for any extended period of time, you know, you have your high points and your low points, and sometimes things get a little old, and sometimes you think the grass is greener, right? And that happens to everybody. And there was one time that I seriously considered an offer from U.S. Customs that made a very legitimate push. They wanted me to continue to work for them. I was a task force officer at the time, and we were doing gun cases. And man, they kind of rode it up the flagpole, and they made a serious offer where I would come in at a higher classification just to kind of, you know, sweeten the pot. But after thinking about it for a while, it was hard because I already had, I think, 10 years onto the agency, and that's a lot of seniority to kind of give up. And so I stayed the course.
So, Chief, I know Customs was one of the more liberal agencies as far as placement. Were they going to allow you to remain in South Florida, or were they looking to move you out to Texas or somewhere else?
No, they would have allowed me to stay in South Florida with the understanding that if I wanted to move up again, eventually that I would have to go to DC. But certainly at the time they made me the offer, I would get to stay here.
Okay. Okay. KB, we don't know if you're able to hear and respond. Are you?
I just want to chime in real quick. Chief, I really appreciate you coming on such short notice. Um, and just for the audience knows, we're just coming back from a dedication to community group of sessions with the Miami-Dade Police Department down in Miami. That's where I'm headed back to Jacksonville from now. And Chief Khalil was part of our discussion. He's a member of D2C now. He's part of our discussion. And he brought up some real great points. He told a story. And Chief, if you don't mind, I'd like for you to share that story that you told about the inmate that was arrested, and you found out that he wasn't the one who really committed the crime. But if you could share that story, with us, I appreciate that.
No, I don't mind at all. And the story that Stretch is referring to is I was, made chief of police, and everything was going really well. And crime is going down. And I was able to bring in a lot of technology into the police department. It was helping us not just solve a lot of crime, but be pretty efficient in the arrests that we were able to make. And we had a terrible shooting where 3 people were shot, 2 were killed, young men. The surviving victim identifies some people as the shooters. And so anyway, I put a lot of pressure on the state attorney's office to be able to go make these arrests because they, quite honestly, they wanted more information, more evidence. But they finally, gave in and said, okay, fine, you can make the arrest. We go make the arrest. I have a big press conference. Everyone is there. I'm there patting myself in the back about how quickly we were able to move and make these arrests and charge these guys with murder. And so anyway, my assistant chief of police of investigations comes in the next day and he says, hey, chief, the mother of one of the guys we arrested came in and said that her son didn't do it. And I was like, okay, so? He goes, man, I believe her. I can't explain why, but I believe her. I said, okay, well, what did the guy say, when we arrested him? No, he lawyered up right away. He didn't say a word. He lawyered up. I said, okay, what's the plan? He said, well, I'd like to go and check these places because the mother said that they were together all day shopping. And so I want to get one of our investigators to document where she says they were. I want to go down there and see if we can't pull video or something to vet her story. I said, okay, go ahead. So anyway, the next day I am on my way home from work and he calls me and he says, hey, chief, man, we found a place. We were able to pull the video and the guy is on video with his mom. It was not, he didn't do anything. And so, right away I thought, oh my God, what is the mayor going to think? I had been chief 7-8 months. What is the city manager going to think? The public? I had this big press conference. I was there patting myself on the back. It was shocking. I called my wife. I told her, honey, this just happened. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I want to go home, which, I really did. But obviously I turned around, went back to the station. And when I get there, the local TV station is there doing the live shoot. They come right to where I'm at and, live. Hey, here's the chief now, like they do. Or came right over, chief, you want to comment on this? How can something like this happen? And I didn't have time to prepare a statement or anything. And I think that's probably a good thing because what just came out was our charge in police is to protect the innocent. And that typically means victims of crime. But in this case, it means someone that we arrested that we shouldn't have. We made a mistake. I'm proud of the work that my investigators did to find the truth. But we need to make this right. I'm going to go upstairs and call the state attorney. We're going to make sure that he's immediately released. Well, I get in the elevator, I go to my office, and I'm still thinking this is like the worst thing that could possibly happen. And then I start getting phone calls. And the first phone call is from a commissioner that we have that used to be a public defender. And he calls me and he goes, "Hey, Chief, that was pretty incredible what just happened. You know, you've basically told everyone that we can trust you. And I appreciate it." And I thought, oh, okay. The next person that calls, Reuben Roberts, who at the time was the president of the NAACP for Miami-Dade. He basically tells me the same thing. And it was one call after another of people basically saying, "Good job, and we're proud of you." I never got one single call of someone saying, "What's wrong with you guys? How could you do that? This is crazy." Everything was positive. Obviously, we got the gentleman immediately released. He's interviewed the next day, and he's saying, "I'm grateful to the police department and the work that they did." Never filed a complaint. It was an important lesson to me because it basically taught me right then and there, man, if you just kind of come out and own it, if you just say, "Hey, you know, we made a mistake, but we're going to make it right, and I'm sorry," you know, things are going to be okay. And it was okay. And it was a pretty incredible moment because honestly, I did not expect that. I just didn't.
Chief, I heard you tell that story, and I too was just it was kind of like heartwarming to see fairness and objectivity and the standards of truth and integrity and all of those things in the forefront and appreciated by a broad band of the citizenry. And I just thought that was just awesome. And that kind of, I think, in a training like that, it set the standard and made it easier for all officers to say, "Hey, man, I'm going to stand on the truth or I die by the truth." And that way, at least, I thought that was just a glowing testimony of telling the truth.
And you know what happens, DV, and for whatever reason, as people, we're always resistant, right, to just come out and say, "Man, I screwed up." You know, it's just not an easy thing for the majority of us to do. But the reality is that when you do that, man, just about all the time, people tell you it's okay. It's all right. And if you like, no, man, I messed up. Hey, they're like now trying to tell you it's cool. You're being too hard on yourself. So, you know, it's great that it worked out that way. But honestly, it's the typical reaction. But for whatever reason, we just struggle, you know, just to come out and say, "Man, I made a mistake. I'm sorry."
Chief, I think the importance of that story is just like you said, just coming out. And my dad used to always say, do the right thing, not the popular thing. And you definitely did the right thing. And those citizens, we had a young lady in the class yesterday that was prepared to come in and just, you know, kind of not really go at it with the officers. We don't stack the deck or anything like that. But we had somebody that was prepared to come in. The young lady from Mothers of Black Boys, Kimberly. I don't know if you remember her or not, but she was. We told her when she came in, don't hold back, ask questions. And she made a point to you when they were talking about trust. You know, trust in the police, and she said her comment was, "Well, we got a reason why we don't trust the police. There's a valid reason why we don't." And your response back to her just shut it down. And it was because she was being straightforward and honest, and it just shut it down. I talked to her after the class. She said, I had nothing to say. You know, and when you're straightforward with people like that, that's what happens. I appreciate it. Your you know, you can't do your honesty and all that yesterday. Appreciate it. It was refreshing, you know, so.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
For that to come from a chief, a sheriff, a chief, made it even more, you know, understandable, because the class we had today kept saying that the administration has lost touch with the soldiers on the streets, and we brought you up, matter of fact, and talked about the fact that how you ran the department and all. Dozell, I don't know if you know it, but if it wasn't the chief, we would have never got D2C started in Miami.
we're gonna talk about that at the halfway point. Yeah, I was at the initial news conference.
Okay.
And was so excited. I heard at the recent event, I heard him talking about it. Chief, let me let me just chime in. I know it sounds like it's a mutual patting on the back society, but it's not. I appreciate just the integrity, the honesty, and the forthcomingness and I saw that back in, was it November of 2021? I saw that in the initial news conference, and you're being consistent with what we saw. But even to say that nothing's off the table as far as that, because we realize that you have influence with high people. And I heard you say it at that recent training. I heard you say that I'm here to help you, and any lever I can pull to help you, I'm available to do it. So I know you don't want to put that in jeopardy for you to step out and say, "Hey, man, guys, take the gloves off. I'm going to be totally transparent." I appreciate that. So let me ask you this: what do you think the status of policing in America is today? If you were given it a health grade as far as acceptance, policing community, and trust, and all of those things, what would you say? And compared to back in the day when you may have started, when we knew it was a higher level.
Man, I don't think we're in a great place. And I think it does depend where you live, right? There's communities that are more likely to embrace their police officers. And then there's other communities, not so much, and for different reasons. So I think it depends where you're at. But just speaking in general, we're not in a great place. Every police department is short. Not a lot of people want to be police officers because people tell them, "What are you, crazy?" Not only is that a very dangerous job, but a lot of people don't like the police. And if we're honest, everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be appreciated. And DV, police officers, they do the job because they want to be appreciated. Whether they admit it or not, they want to be told, "Thank you, and I appreciate it, and if it wasn't for you, I don't know what would have happened, and thank God you showed up." And they want to hear that, man. Whether they admit it or not, that's the truth. You become a police officer because you want to be a hero. That's the reality of it. You want to impact somebody's life in a profound way, and you sacrifice a lot when you do that. When you're a police officer, you could be working on weekends, when it's your kid's birthday, on Christmas, New Year's, hurricanes. And when you're going through that sacrifice and you're risking your life, and then people are looking at you like you're trash and they don't even know you, man, that hurts. Right. So that's a painful thing, man. When you know that your heart's in the right place and you're trying to do right, it hurts you. And the reason I say all of that is we're short-staffed. People don't want to be officers. That means officers are being worked harder than they should be worked. Well, you know what happens, man, when you're exhausted. Now you're even shorter with people, right? You have less patience. You're not as cool as you should be. Your judgment is impaired. And that worries me because that's adding to the problem. You know what I'm saying? So I'm concerned. I hope we come out of it. I hope that, we are able to staff our ranks. I hope we get good people, and I hope people appreciate the good work that the majority of the officers do. And the officers that shouldn't be officers, we got to get rid of them.
So, Chief, there was an adage when I worked, and I joked at you guys' recent training. I joked that I was a policeman back in the 1700s or something. I think I left in the 86 officially. There was an adage that it takes one attaboy is worth 10 RSs makes one attaboy. And if that attaboy came from the administration or your superior officers, great. At least somebody is recognizing you that you're doing a good job. But man, if it came from the citizenry, that's worth $1 million as far as your esteem is concerned. Because you know it's appreciated.
100%. I agree with you. And listen, I would tell police officers all the time, I wouldn't do it. You know how they say, oh man, praise publicly. And if you're going to, criticize, do that privately. Honestly, I wouldn't even praise them directly publicly, like at a roll call. Because then I know the other officers, then, the chief, and, we'll give them a hard time about it, right? But what I would do, because I know they appreciate it, is I would absolutely tell them, hey, man, come here a second. I mean, I appreciate the good work that you do here. Or, hey, man, that was really impressive what you did. Now, one of the things that I did, which I wish I would have started earlier, I started doing this towards the end of my time, was I would take emails of citizens that would send me an email saying, hey, these officers did a great job, or we really appreciate your service. Thank you so much, that kind of thing. I would take those emails, compile them, and then send them out to everyone in the agency and say, hey, you may not see it or hear it, but this is what the citizens are telling us. Here are the emails. You can see them yourself. So I would do that so they can see, man, it's true. They do support us. They do care about us. They are cheering for us.
Wow. Kim, you want to chime in on that? Okay.
Can you repeat the question, Dozell?
Yeah. Did you want to chime in on what the chief just said about the citizenry recognizing?
I heard that part. I'm sorry. I thought you had asked something. No, I love what Chief is doing, man. That builds morale. I've been around. I was a detective with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and when something happens coming down from the administration that kills morale, people don't even want to come to work. When they come to work, they don't want to do anything. That what Chief is doing helps build morale and makes the officers want to produce and want to work hard for you, because you got somebody that's looking out for you. That's especially as a chief looking out for you. Talking to some guys from the city of Miami, who was saying that you're looking at a guy's body camera footage once, and to see if he did something incorrectly. They found out that he did everything the right way, but they saw that one of the officers in the background had the wrong color socks on or something, and they wrote him up for it. Now, stuff like that kills morale, and that was one of the stories that was shared with us during one of the sessions we did. And what Chief is doing, that actually builds morale, and you got to have the morale strong with your department. Those are using police officers, that, Chief, that you got to have the guys on the patrol guys are the first people that people come in contact with, that citizens come in contact with. Right. So you want to have the morale strong, so when they show up to somebody, they're positive, they're smiling, they're not in a bad mood or whatever. So I'm all for what Chief just said.
Chief, you talked about the numbers across the board in America, and I heard that in all of the trainings being down. Is there any solution that we can ever increase those numbers? Do you ever see us being fully staffed again, where you're telling potential employees you got to wait until the next opening or whatever? Do you ever see those days again?
I think we will. I think, just history has shown us that, sometimes you hit a rough patch, and how you respond to it, how you react to it will kind of dictate what happens in the future. And I think a lot of people are realizing that we need, good communicators in policing, right? It can't be, the strong guy, the fast guy. No, man, it's got to be the person that has good communication skills. Quite frankly, we need more women in law enforcement. Women at a younger age are just more mature than men. So if you have a 21-year-old woman compared to a 21-year-old man, typically, and I'm speaking in general, typically they already have better communication skills. They're already more reasonable. They have the ability to negotiate better, so because a lot of that, you guys know, you go to a scene, man, and a lot of times it's a negotiation. You're like, hey man, do me a favor. I would appreciate it if you stand over there. I just want to figure out what's happening over here. Can you, give a little space to each other? You're kind of negotiating, right? And so you learn to do that better and better as you get older and as you have more time on the department. Women seem to grasp that much faster. I think we would benefit greatly if we aggressively recruited more women in law enforcement.
So Chief, 2020 was a year that reminded me of 1968. We had two pivotal assassinations in '68. We had the Chicago riots. 2020 started off with tragically the death of Kobe Bryant and the other 7 in the helicopter, and it led right into COVID-19, simultaneously George Floyd in the Atlanta suburb. And I'm sure that killed a lot of potential officers. Do you think that departments are working aggressively enough to overcome some of the negativity of the stigma of some of those bad choices made back then, to go out and get those good women, those good men, those young, bright minds, caring hearts? I heard in recent training, Kim said it's got to be beyond college degrees. Police work has to be able to find better ways to recruit good officers beyond the degree. Now, I'm with him. I think there's a place for that. But do you think you think a strong enough escalation process took place in trying to overcome the negativity and fighting a good fight to bring in good officers, or do we still have a lot of work to do, and how do we do it?
I think there's progress. That's the good news. I do think there's some progress. I still think we got a long way to go, and it's not to be critical of any one place, but man, I'm not going to lie. I was pretty shocked when we had that incident recently in Memphis, where the name of the squad was Viper or Scorpion, or, I'm thinking, what the hell year is it? Why would you even have that name attached to a unit of police officers in 2023? This was back in the 70s, where you're thinking, well, no, man, it's just about being cool. We just like the name. It's cool. Okay, maybe, right? But you can't have a name like that. And then those guys went out there and did what they did with that motorist, where he was pleading for his life. And what it showed me was those guys that did that was not the first time. They were very comfortable. They were comfortable in what they were doing. And so there's progress, but then I'll see that and it'll concern me because, I don't know why a department would allow a unit to call itself that. There was never supervision there till way, way later. Man, if you supervise a group of aggressive street cops, and by the way, they're needed. We got to have guys out there that are going after, the trigger pullers and the bad guys. You have to have them. But they require a lot of supervision, man. You got to be there. You got to be there to make sure that they keep their jobs. Sometimes people need to be protected against themselves, right? And you need to be, as a supervisor, you need to be the one that says, hey, man, that's not cool. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you behave that way. And by the way, I'm doing that for you, so you don't get in trouble, so you can retire in 20 years, so you can get a pension. And you may not want to hear that right now, but later you're going to remember me and you're going to appreciate me. Well, you got to have the courage to do that, man.
Yeah. Chief, we're going to come back, and KB's going to throw out the next question when we come back from the break.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
And I've always worked on specialized units, Chief, and I totally agree. Those units are needed. Some people here in Jacksonville, we had some recent incidents where they wanted to disband the units. The citizens wanted to disband the units. I think the units are needed. We have problem areas where those units can be effective. But like you say, they got to have the proper supervision. And without that proper supervision, our supervisor rode with us. We rode as a squad. The whole squad rode together. It's about 7 of us, and actually about 6 of us and a supervisor. And we did everything together. If we stopped the car, it looked like overkill maybe, but all of us stopped that car. And what that did was it made the citizens. I mean, we used empathy when we stopped them. We didn't, even though we had on the EDUs and the t-shirts and the vest and all, and we looked kind of militaristic, I guess, if that's the word I'm saying it right. The fact is that we showed empathy when we stopped somebody and we talked to them, we explained to them, we educated them on why we're doing what we're doing, why so we ride in a pack, and why we ride the way we do, and the citizens understood it. You know, they get it when you take time to explain things to them. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. The units are needed. They just require supervision. You know, the team's got to keep everybody straight, keep them out of trouble. You need those units that are sharp, that are streetwise, that know where the problem areas are, that can just by looking at someone, they know this person is getting ready to harm someone, because they know the people in the neighborhood and who's doing what. You need those units. You just need to do police work right. That's all. You can have both. You can have both.
I totally agree.
Oh, go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
No, I just say I totally agree.
Okay. We'll take the short break. We're coming right back. We have Chief Jorge Colina, who is the recently retired Chief of Police, City of Miami Beach. He's back with us. He's now part of the D2C faculty. I know what I'm trying to say. My tongue just twisted. And got an opportunity at a recent event to just hear him, just candid as he is tonight, candid as he was the first time I saw him, even in a public forum. Man, I tell you, I can get with that. We'll be right back after this break. World.com. They got all of your virtual needs. You saw some of the celebrities that they have served through the pandemic and beyond. And we're going to be talking in the upcoming weeks about some bombshell clients that they're going to be doing work for. GoGigaWorld.com. They'll make you look good. They handle all of your virtual needs and even web billing. Contact them right now. The team of the Toyas and the Marquias and all of that GoGiga team will make you look good. You'll be happy you contacted them. So in a few weeks, we're going to introduce a new segment called, this makes my blood boil, but we're not going to do that tonight. Tonight's going to be a shout out. And the shout out is going to be to the D2C team, if I can ever get it out. The D2C, you see that 2 in between, and that word act is highlighted. And this is some of their sponsors, prominent amongst them, the Miami Heat, and you see other organizations, Florida Blue, Stronger Together, the Boys and Girls Club of Miami. You'll just see just some of these groups, they help to make them what they are, and we shout them out. We had their CEO and founder on when we first started doing this before Go Giga grabbed us, and just a bald-headed man in front of a camera. And we had the founder on. We're going to get him back on shortly, Quentin Williams, and we kind of focused in on the book. And he was trying to tell me then that, man, D2C is far bigger than this book that I wrote for young males to know how to deal with the police when stopped. And I have seen over these last 3 years exactly what they're saying firsthand. That's him there. That's the founder. Well, that's actually Chief Colina. He was at one of their recent trainings, having come on board the faculty. He is talking to some of the members of the Metro-Dade Police Department, and he's well respected, and they highly respected him because of his experience. He was not an outside consultant, but he was one who rose to the ranks. The D2C team was smart enough to bring him on, and he has been nothing but an asset to the team, as you see. And that's my brother. That's KB right there, 26-year police officer. He tells the story of those trainings. I don't know how he does it. I'll let him talk about it at another time. And each time I'm sitting there, I'm just amazed at how he can do it. and how he can stay focused on training the officers. It's about relationship building. When you get relationships built, you'll learn anything you need to know about anything in your city. And of course, there's Q himself. He's the founder CEO. That was Chief Colina at one of the first sessions after the news conference. He came in one of the first sessions, and you can see he's busting a funny. What I'm trying to say, he's saying something funny. He had great morale with the troops, and you can see how. And that's just so important. And of course, the founder in the background is, and that's him again, MQ Quentin Williams, former FBI agent, former federal attorney, former attorney for Jacksonville Jaguars and the NBA minor league team. I think they call it the G League now. What a powerful team they have amassed. What a great faculty and what a great work they do. Hey, man, the dialogue shouts out D2C. We're going to get Q on, if not at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year. We're back chopping it up. My boy KV is with us tonight. And, man, I'm glad whenever I can get him on because he is busy, and I acknowledge that and accept that. And you see he's riding, and he's with us tonight. KV, you got a question for Chief?
I do have a question. In Miami, when I first started going down to Miami and working with the police agency down there 4 or 5 years ago, it's one of the most diverse sheriff's departments I've ever been involved with, I've ever been involved with. And it's because of the culture down in Miami, you know. But how do we, as a sheriff's office here in Jacksonville, how do we get our sheriff's office to become more diverse? You know, here we're the population of blacks is smaller than the population of whites here. There's not many Latino. There is a group of Latino people. How do we get those people to get involved in with police work? How do we recruit more diverse officers to come and join the agency?
Man, it's a great question because there's a difference between diversity and inclusivity. It doesn't matter if you have one of every kind if you don't listen to each other, right? You're not achieving a thing if you said, hey, man, I'm going to get me 3 men, 3 women, 3 white, 3 black, 3 Hispanic, 3 Asian, 3, but nobody communicates, you've achieved nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, the idea is that you want to be diverse, but inclusive where everybody has value and you recognize that everyone is made up of their own experiences and that is going to be valuable to you as a whole. And so I think with that in mind, the best way is to visit the places that you know you're going to have. For example, if you want to have greater Black representation at a police department, let's say, like let's just go right to Ferguson, right? Remember Ferguson, Missouri was a big problem. I'm making the numbers up, but for example, 82% of Ferguson was Black, and they had like 3 Black male police officers on the agency. You know, just crazy numbers. Okay, well, you need to go where you have good people, whether it's church, college, the parks where somebody's playing in leagues because it's already showing a certain amount of discipline, and actively recruit there. If what you want is more Hispanics because you need Spanish speakers on your agency, then you need to do the same thing. Go to schools where you know that the majority of the people there are Hispanic, and not be afraid to say, hey man, we need Spanish speakers in the agency. We would be grateful if you came and join us, join our agency. We really could use you. Don't be afraid to go to a historically Black college or university and say, hey man, we need more Black officers in our agency because it's going to help us do a better job. Just come out and say it if that is what you want. And as long as you're coming from a good place, nobody's offended by that. And if your stats at the agency shows that you don't represent what your community is, you got a problem. You got a problem. You know, your agency should represent what your community looks like. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly, but for the most part, that's what your agency should look like. It should look just like the community.
And I asked that question because when I joined the sheriff's office here in Jacksonville, we were actually being sued or threatened to be sued by the FBI because our minority numbers were so low. I actually attended an academy and this was in 1984. I attended an academy where they were doing this big minority recruiting drive, and it wasn't just blacks. It was Hispanics, Latinos, females, just any minority. They were going after any minority, not just blacks. And it was because the FBI had did a study and they said that our numbers were so low, and they had threatened to sue us to actually get them to put this class on. And I was just wondering, I hear a lot of guys that a lot of my white brothers that was on the department said they didn't get the same opportunity to get hired as we did back then, and that was wrong towards them. Kind of like an affirmative action, I guess, thing. And they felt, that they were not treated fairly because of the fact that they weren't hired and they had the same qualifications or better qualifications. And I was just wondering, I asked that question because I want to see what would be the best way to do it without having to deal with that issue, so.
Yeah, and listen, when someone's saying, well, you don't have the same qualifications, what does that mean exactly? Because, someone, to your point, KV, at the discussion that we had about, hey, somebody might have gone to college and been a good student. That doesn't mean that they have any instincts out in the street. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that they can identify a problem before it happens. That doesn't mean that they know how to talk to people and get them to give them information to gain trust. It doesn't mean any of those things. I read how I told you I love these little stories of some of these leadership books. And there's a gentleman by the name of Maxwell who is also happens to preach. He's a preacher. He speaks about this gentleman who's a very successful businessman. He buys companies that are failing and then turns them around. And then once he turns them around, he then sells them. So he's doing really well. He speaks about, he goes into this company and he noticed something right away. The people that work on the line walk in, they punch a clock, and they go to the line. They want to use the phone. They have to wait till their break. There's a public phone that they go and they can use that public phone. The people that worked in the office, sure, they had college degrees, they did accounting, that kind of stuff, but they didn't have to punch a clock. They just walked, they sat in, and they had a phone at their desk, which they can use at any time. They didn't have to wait, till it was break time. So he says he observes this for a couple weeks, and then he brings everybody in the company together because the company was very splintered. That's why they weren't doing well. They weren't working as a team. He brings everybody together and he shares with them this observation. Hey, man, I've noticed this. And I can't help but think, what does a college degree have to do with trust? Because I'm making the guy and the girl that works on the line punch a clock. The guy that went to college and the lady that went to college, they don't have to punch a clock. What does trust have to do with education? Nothing. So he goes, he rips that clock off the wall. He says, from now on, everybody walks in. When you're supposed to, you go to work. If you need to use the phone, you need the phone. You use the phone. You don't have to wait till your break time. When it's time to go home, you go home. And I'm going to judge you on what you do and how you do, not based on, whether you have a degree or you don't. Well, the moral of the story is everybody comes together. Of course, they love the new boss and everybody rallies and the company is turned around and the company's saved. And it was that simple gesture. Well, man, we get caught up in that. And so when it comes to qualifications, the biggest thing is what's in your heart, man. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a legitimate, good public servant? Because that's the number one thing right there. Everything else,
So you just retired as chief a couple of years ago as a chief, and I spoke out in class the other day and talked about I sat on the oral boards here in Jacksonville. We used to hire some educated idiots. I'll just put it straight out. We had educated idiots, like you just said. They had no people skills when they hit the streets. They could take a test and make rank, but they couldn't fit in on the streets. And my question is, if you take that approach and you go back to hiring people and tell them, say, hey, you don't have a degree yet, but if you start working toward a degree, we're going to go ahead and hire you if you'll go ahead and enroll in class or something. Is that, and I don't want to say politically correct, but you're a chief administrator. Is that hard to do it coming from is the mayor going to agree with that, or the citizens going to agree with that? And how do you deal with the mayor and the citizens to get them to buy into what you're selling?
I mean, you got to have the courage to just do it because you know it's the right thing to do. You got to give people an opportunity. And by the way, you don't have to be married to anybody, right? You give somebody a chance and they squandered it, then they're out. But you gave them the chance. If they do good, great, you keep them, right? You don't, oh, that's it, we brought them on now, you know, what are we going to do? No, man. You know, you can have a probationary period where they understand that if they don't do the right thing, they're not going to make it. But I do think that people need to have a chance. Listen, people were upset when I changed the policy on tattoos and beards. And I'm okay with the people that disagree. There's a lot of people that think, I don't like it. I don't like to see a policeman with a beard. I don't like to see a policeman with a tattoo. And I understand that. But I changed that policy because I don't want to miss out on someone who could be a great public servant, a terrific police officer, because they have a tattoo. No, man, if you're good, I'll take you. I don't want to lose out on you just because you got a tattoo when you're in the Marine Corps or something. I don't care about that. You know, and again, I respect the people that have a different opinion. You know, they want a traditional look. But for me, we need good people, man. We need good people. I don't care whether you got a beard or you got a tattoo. If you're good and you got a good heart, I want you to serve.
I feel you, Chief. We want to get to, we're not going to leave this serious matter without having some fun with it near the end in the next few minutes. But I have to ask you, Kim and I've done, over the last 6 months, we've done a part 1 and a part 2. What are we going to do about the mass shootings in America? We recently had another one. And I know this is this concern has deep political, financial ramifications. And you said we could ask you, so I'm gonna take the gloves off with this question. Is it a matter of politicians not wanting to just stand up and say to the NRA, listen, we don't want your money because we don't want to see this year 6 instances where 20 plus people were wiped out with the AR or a weapon of that nature? Could somebody have some strength about them and say these guns need to be banned in this country? You have them in your home, but they don't go out your home or something. I mean, can we just do something to take the weaponry down and have the strictness of laws when those laws are violated? What's your opinion from both sides as a citizen and having served in law enforcement? Because the narrative is, well, I'm not going to put mine down when they got it and they can use it on me. But if we make a stricter penalty, the person has every right to protect their home. I have no issue with that. But why in the world with a weapon of war? And I know we're part of that Vietnam era. We lost friends in Vietnam. Why would we lose kids in a schoolyard with the same weapon that we killed with and we were killed with in Vietnam?
So the first part of your question, yes, I think what happens is that money talks, and they spend a lot of money, the NRA, and they hire all these lobbyists, and they get in the pocket of the politicians. And that's why they're so reluctant to come out and speak out against some of the things that are unreasonable. Because come on, man, I'm a gun owner, but I don't need to have a bazooka or an AR-15 or any of that. I don't need that to protect myself or my home. They're against these risk protection orders. I gave some interviews when that incident happened up in Maine. I gave some national interviews on that. A risk protection order, DV, is where you go in front of a judge and you say, hey, this person was institutionalized for 2 weeks. They threatened to shoot up a military base. We want to remove that person's weapons just long enough to make sure they're not a danger. I mean, how can that be unreasonable? But the politicians are afraid to say it because they know that they'll start pumping money into some other candidate, right, to get them out. But listen, everybody talks about the Second Amendment. Everyone knows the Constitution. You know, every time somebody talks about the Second Amendment, I always ask them, do you know what the Third Amendment is? And no one ever does. They know the Constitution. They know the Second Amendment. Do you know what the Third Amendment is? The Third Amendment says that the military can't come take your house and house troops there. That's what it says, and it's in the Constitution. The reason I bring that up is I love the Constitution, but obviously it was written a long, long, long time ago for a different set of circumstances when we didn't have guns that were as dangerous and as prolific as they are now. So that's why we have to make some adjustments. And it's okay to own a gun. Like I said, I own a gun. My wife owns a gun. I just think we need to be reasonable. We need to be reasonable. That's all. And the politicians should not be afraid of the NRA, but honestly, they are. They are, because they're afraid they're going to get somebody else to run against them.
Coach Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings, who was an assistant coach with Steve Kerr, I think during the time of the Las Vegas shooting, and Kerr came out very strong about that. Well, at the recent Maine shooting, Coach Brown came out and he said, I don't want to talk basketball. I just heard that happened. We're the smartest nation on the face of the planet. When are we going to stand up in all aspects and show that we care about all people and that we really are? And it's, he just stepped just short of saying it's a greed issue that allows that to happen. So I'm just glad to hear a person of your perspective, from both perspectives, lifelong police officer as is Kim, and to have that. Kim, you want to weigh in on that before we?
Yeah, I would. And I'm an old SWAT dude, and I'm a firm believer. When we were growing up, Daddy didn't put his gun up. Daddy didn't lock his gun up in no cabinet or nothing. He told us not to mess with it, and we didn't mess with it. He left it out where it was accessible to him if he had to get to it. And when we were growing up, he just taught us not to never touch that weapon, and we didn't touch it. What I'm trying to say is, I think it's the person, not the gun. It's the person. I know the guns that I don't own an AK. I don't have no reason to own one. The best weapon for a shotgun, in my opinion, for house protection, is a shotgun. I do have a shotgun in my house, and I do own a couple of weapons. I don't have a whole bunch of guns. Matter of fact, some of the guns that I own are loaned out, so I only have like 2 at the house. But I'm one of these guys that say that it's not that if you have a gun, you have an AK sitting on the table, it's not going to jump up and start shooting people. It takes a bad person to use that weapon to make it, do bad things. And that's what we have to kind of control. Like Chief said, if the person has mental health issues, we might need to go take their weaponry for a while and see if they should keep them. We just need to do more background. I think people are getting guns too easy, and they're getting in the wrong hands. And I know it's a money-making thing, all the guns in the hood and everything. I can leave and go in the hood and buy a gun in 20 minutes and be back and show it to you. And that's me, a retired cop. I can go buy a gun in the hood just that quick because I know the people over there to get it from. But the guns are just so easy and they're so easily accessible now. I think that's more the problem than the wrong people getting them. I don't have no use for AK. That's just me. I have no use for one. So, you can't shoot them at the range. You have to go to certain gun ranges that they'll let you shoot them. So, I just have no use for one. A lot of people are intrigued by weapons, and they have the right to do that. But you just got to make sure those people aren't the crazies that are getting them. So,
pistols and 9s, Glocks, you very rarely hear them used in mass shootings. It's the AK and that war weapon. And I'm like, every time it happens, I'm angry that I'm numb to it now, that it's no longer a shock factor. And as Coach Brown was saying when that happened in Maine, why is that? Why should that be in America, where we're the smartest, the greatest economy, we like to think we're the greatest nation on the face of the planet, and people in other countries will gladly tell us that. And we got a problem like this. that does not exist in Dubai, does not exist in Russia, does not exist in other places, and it's just really frustrating. So, Chief, we got to get you out of here, but I want to have a little fun over the next 5 minutes, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're an ex-chief, so retired chief, so you can tell us what was your favorite division. If we were to go back and ask your troops, who did he favor the most? What group did he favor the most? What would you expect to hear?
Man, it's a tough question. It really is, because I worked in internal affairs 3 different times, and in our anti-corruption unit, and we did proactive cases. And that's a really tough job, because you're investigating the person. If you're a good investigator, you pursue the case. You don't want to find out what you're finding out. And then ultimately, if you have to indict a policeman, which we did, quite a few times, and arrest them, it's always hard, right? When you see that happen, you're doing your job. But I had a special place in my heart for them, because I knew that the work they were doing was so important, because they were protecting police officers. And I used to tell them that all the time. By holding officers accountable, man, we're protecting the majority of the cops, because they know that if they don't do right, we're going to be there. And by doing that, we're protecting them. And so I had a soft spot for them. But, my early days when I worked street narcotics and special investigations, and I just always loved them dudes. And so I don't know. It's a tough question. It's a toss-up between the both of them, because I have a special place for both. Special place in my heart for both.
Surprised to hear IA. Really surprised to hear that, because that's kind of like a quiet. It has to be done. We're going to keep it out of the limelight and that kind of thing. But I'm glad to hear that. Got to ask you, what is your funniest story during what was the funniest incident that you saw or were involved in as a police officer?
Oh man, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. One of the craziest things, or could have gone really bad for me, was we were in surveillance for many hours, and man, I had to go to the bathroom. And so, I go to a Home Depot, the car now is stationary somewhere, and I feel like I got time. And I run into this Home Depot, one that I'm not familiar with. And I was such in a rush that I went into the woman's bathroom. So I realized that once I went inside, that I thought, shit, this bathroom is really nice looking. And then I realized the walls are pink. And then I thought, man, I better hurry up and get out of here before they call the cops and I blow this whole case, because they came in there to get me thinking I'm some kind of pervert or something. And meanwhile, I just had to go to the bathroom really bad.
That's a good one. KB, anything before we get Chief out of here? You have any last questions or comments?
I just want to thank Chief for taking time out. Like we said, we caught him at the last minute unexpectedly, and he graciously came on. Sorry that I was driving and unable to be at a stable position during the show and all, but I'm home now and I'm sitting in my car. And I want to get out the car and run it, walk it in the house and all. But anyway, thank you for coming on, Chief. We appreciate you. Appreciate the way you conduct your business. I've always looked up to you from the time we start coming down here. So I'm glad you're a member of D2C now. You bring some good points to the table. So we'll look forward to working with you.
No, thank you guys, man. And God bless you both. But just so we keep it real, the agreement was that I was going to come on the show because next time that I was in Jacksonville, you guys were going to take care of me.
Got you covered. Dozell is actually in Fort Lauderdale, but you come to Jacksonville, Chief, I got you covered. I got the city like the back of my hand. I got connections. You covered.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Whenever you cross that short line to Broward, I got you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you so kindly. You had any parting questions? I mean, parting comments before you leave us tonight? We're so grateful.
No, just that, man. I appreciate the work that you guys do, and DV. I know that you served, and you're an educator, and you're a coach, and man, I always admire people that give their time to our youth, and Kim, I know that you served a long time, man, and you've lived a tough life and have suffered some significant grief, and you're still out there, doing your thing, which says a ton about your character and your heart. So I appreciate you guys, man, and God bless you both.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you so kindly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
KB, how do you see it, man? This has been a great hour.
Man, Chief Colina is going to be a plus to dedication to community. And for those that don't know what D2C, dedication to community, is, we're an organization that was formed to one of our main goals in the law enforcement division of it is to bring police and community together. After the George Floyd incident and some of the things that had went on in Charleston and around the country in general, we're trying to, after all the recent protests and all, and people have a distrust of police officers, not liking police officers, we're trying to just bring police and community together. And Dozell, you've been in several other sessions. We've been pretty successful with it. We have a different approach with it, and it's working. We bring the community and police together in these sessions, and they talk to each other. So the community and police, even if they come in and don't disagree with each other, when they walk out, they're swapping phone numbers and they're agreeing to at least work together. If they still don't agree, they at least agree to work together. So I know that we're on the right track with what we're doing. Dedication to community. Our CEO, Quentin Williams, like you said earlier, one of the smartest brothers I ever met, man. He like a brother to me, but he like one of the smartest guys I ever met. So the way I see it is I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, pressing forward and trying to keep the community and police together. I'm a cop. I'm from the hood. I'm a cop. And now that I'm back being a civilian again, I run into some of the same things. I ran into some of the same issues being stopped because I was black in certain vehicles. Ran into that when I was on the job. So just got to work together and try and work this thing out, man. We can all live here together peacefully, and that's what we got to do.
Yeah. But as I see it, I'm just elated that Kim, during that recent training, brought up the idea of us contacting Chief, and Chief readily agreeing to if he could make the time and the time squeeze that we had to being with us, and it all worked out. Hey, I'm always on top of the world when my brother's with me. You know how busy he is, Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale. He's always busy, and we admire and respect him for that, but thank him for finding the time and making the time to be here tonight. The way I see it, Chief Colina, what I saw in him from a distance, I was not privy to have much conversation with him in I think it was November 2021 during that news conference, but I just had a great feeling. And then when he came in for the first training, I was just elated when he came in for that training, and I thought I saw confirmed what I thought I saw the first time I met him. And then now having really met him and seen and felt his heart, and tonight's time together just showed, number one, he's the kind of chief I would have loved working for. And Chief C.W. Willis at Daytona was somewhat like that. We were just so distant from him. That's the kind of chief I would have wanted to work for. I'm sure he would have been the sergeant I wanted to work with, the lieutenant and the captain, and on up the ranks. And I know the citizenry is grateful and proud for his work on every level of his career. We at the Dialogue are so grateful that he took time out to bring his expertise and his heart to us tonight. Dialogue with Dozell. So glad you were able to stop by tonight. KB, we'll catch you next time, man.
All right, man. I'm gonna hit it, bro. I'm tired. Been on that road and just running all week. So love y'all. Toy, Madam Producer, we appreciate you. We love you. Love you, Dozell, and we'll talk with y'all later.
Bless you, my brother. Be safe and enjoy it, man.
All right, bro.
Dozell, we'll see you next week. Monday night, we're going to be talking about domestic violence. And our cousin Janice is going to be here to work with us on that program. And then, wait a minute, I'm out of sequence. You would have seen her. So let me just be quiet and say, just join the dialogue on Monday nights at 8 o'clock, YouTube, Facebook Live. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you, Chief. Thanks, KB. We love you. Love you, Madam Producer. Glad you're back.